Okay, welcome to God's Grace, Stories of the Redeemed, with your host, Dylan Wells. And we've got some daylight coming through today. And as you can tell, I've upgraded to a couch. We're not sitting in a folding chair anymore. And then eventually we'll have to get some curtains for the lights. But on this wonderful Thanksgiving, I wanted to start the podcast out with a prayer and reading some scriptures from Psalms. So I'll open up the Bible to Psalms 100, verse 4. Enter his gates with thanksgiving, go into his courts with praise, give thanks to him and praise his name. For the Lord is good, his unfailing love continues forever, and his faithfulness continues to each generation. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. All right. And as we get started, we're going to have a prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing me back to the screen. I had some technical difficulties earlier in the week with the equipment, but we are here now on this wonderful day of Thanksgiving with friends and family about to come to our house and be able to feast with them in your name. I just pray that everyone that hears my voice is blessed by you, Lord, and they all know that you love them, whether they believe in you or not. Let them know that you are the Heavenly Father, that you know everyone and you love all of us. Bless these words, Holy Spirit, that come out of my mouth as I continue to tell this story. And I just pray that we all can take something out of this. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. All right. So where we left off was reconnecting with my father. We touched on pornography, addiction, the tribulations of birth, reconnecting with my father, and finding Christ. So now this is going to be the season of surgeries and getting into young adulthood. And that will be this chapter of this testimony. So at 15, freshman year, I get injured playing basketball. I think it was going into my sophomore year. I get injured and it was like summer league basketball, and I hurt my knee and I tear my meniscus, and it's called a discoid meniscus. So it's a circle, and your meniscus should be a crescent, and then the femur would fit inside the crescent. So what happened was when it was the full disc, the femur punched a hole through it and tore. And it's actually quite common for people that have that injury. And so what the doctor said was, it's actually way healthier, way stronger. We did the surgery, and it was my first surgery, so it was a little, concerning, hard to deal with. Trooper got through it, no big deal. 6 months later, to the day almost, I fall off my horse and I land like this off the back of my horse, and I land on the ground straight on my back with my knee like that, and it just completely blew up my meniscus. And it was track season, and I was running, and I was still training. It was preseason. I was still training, and my coach was like, "You look phenomenal. You look great. I don't see the injury." But with a meniscus tear, anyone that's had one will understand that it's not something that is like debilitating in the moment, but the more you put on it, the more you're going to agonize later. So you're going to pay for that later. And so while I'm waiting for the MRI results, I'm going and doing my thing, and I had a real promising career in track and field. As a sophomore, I was varsity division champ for high jump. I jumped 5'11", and then in practice I had jumped 6 foot, but I'd never done that on record. And then I was also in the 4x4 relay in the 400-meter dash team, and I'm pretty sure we won that race, the 4x4 relay, as well. And so I had a promising career, and I expected to get a scholarship for at least high jump. And I really was into history at the time, but I had found my true calling, which is welding. But I was just starting to fall in love with it. I hadn't really put my full worth into it yet. And I still was in love with audio engineering. I had still had these aspirations to do academics and athletics. And so I hadn't committed to that. But thank God I had already dabbled in it, and I was doing a shop class, ag mechanics, and then it turned into ag welding. And so I had an outlet. So after the second surgery, the doctor, I go down for the consultation. I had a dentist appointment later that afternoon. I had 2 days back to back, the day after the surgery, or the day of the surgery, and then the day after. So Thursday and Friday, I was supposed to be doing the audio engineering for the largest performing arts event at our high school at that time, and it was the largest event of the year. And so I had, had no intentions of doing this surgery. We're just going down for the consultation, and he says the tear was so large that we're gonna have to do surgery. Can you be here at 5:30 in the morning? It's that severe. And I was like, whoa, no, I mean, no, but I guess if that's like how you feel, then yeah, I mean, I guess. So my mom and I figure out the surgery's in San Francisco, and I live north 3 hours, no traffic. So at least it's like over 150 miles. And so we make it happen, and then we just kind of try and make the best of it. But I'm in shock. And he says, it's one big tear. We'll stitch it up. It'll be no big deal. So I'm still like, okay, very hopeful. At least it'll be better. But what had happened, it was so bad. He took a piece of paper and a pen and just scribbled up and down. And he was like, that's what your knee looked like inside, and showed me the imaging. And he was like, he described it. He said, it looked like shark teeth. His actual words, straight quote. And I was like, okay. But then what happened, he said, so because of that, it rolled on the joint. And so every time I was bending my knee, it was ripping it in half. And so it was tearing in half horizontally. And it was ripping and ripping. So I had a horizontal tear. He said, I could not take that out. If I took it out, you wouldn't have a meniscus left. And you're just too young for that. I still had a tear in my knee, a very slight one, but it was still there, and it was compromising the joint. But at least the majority of the pain was gone, and I was able to recover. But he was like, you're gonna have to change your life. You only have 25 to 30% of your meniscus left. And at this time, I'm 16 years old. That was really heavy. That was really hard to hear. I had this whole vision of, that's when you're starting to figure out, what do I want to do with my life? And I had this whole idea and aspirations. So that was a dark time. And that was a really hard surgery to recover from, because it was more intense. And I just had a hard time with that. I, going through that, I was like, okay, so I finally found my purpose in welding. And then fast forward a few years, I injured again in the field of welding. Once I had graduated welding school, I am trying to move a piece of material, and I pivot with my whole body, lift with your legs, not your back. So I pivot with my whole body, and I tweak it, and I feel it. And it wasn't bad, but it was enough, and I felt it. And at this point, imaging doesn't do anything. And he told me that, like, the next time it's going to be your word. So if you say it's bad, we're just going to do our best to educate a guess and cut you open. Because when I look it up, now that there's no meniscus there, it just shows that it's gone. And so I was like, okay, so we came to the conclusion of trying to rehab it and this and that we need a third surgery. So now I've been injured 3 times, 3 knee surgeries, and the career I had switched already once, right? Because I wanted the history major, I thought, and then track and field athlete. And so that was my first career choice. Now I'm on to my second, and I'm fully committed. I've already gone to college for it. I'm in my career, and I get injured. He goes, you gotta find a desk job. Now I have 15 to 20% left. And he's like, you gotta get a desk job. You don't have any meniscus left. You've already got arthritis there. I'm still doing other things. Like, I can't run. I've tried to run, and I literally collapsed after about maybe a quarter mile. I just collapsed my knee. I went to take that left step and just fell. So I have no integrity in it, and I really can't. He also was like, you're just gonna have stick legs. And I was like, okay. So I thought, I was like, okay, so I guess I'll retire. I guess I'll just stop. And I couldn't get a job at Walmart. I couldn't get a job at a fast food joint. I couldn't get a job doing anything, because all these jobs, their managers made more than my starting salary on my first job that I ever got. And so no one would hire me. So after I recovered, I was like, I guess I'm going back. I'm going to go back. What else can I do? Literally, people were like, this is all you can do. I can't, we won't hire you. I was like, okay, so I guess I'm going back into the field. And I stayed healthy for a little while longer. And then I did something stupid and I like made a maneuver with a piece of welding lead, which was like 50 feet long, was snagged, and I whipped it. And when I did that, the lead took the momentum, took my arm and yanked it. Well, it wasn't necessarily that movement that tore it, but I tore my labrum in my shoulder. And then come to find out, it didn't look bad. The labrum didn't look like it was torn, but so I tried to rehab that with like non-operational rehab. Couldn't fix that. So it didn't look torn, and come to find out, it was another birth defect, so like the discoid meniscus. And then I also have this pinky here, this ligament in my pinky, and never grew. So this is actually my left wrist is weaker because of that. And you really need your pinky for grip strength, for holding things. And I didn't really know for the longest time, but come to find out, it just didn't grow. So now I got the discoid meniscus, I've got this pinky, and my labrum. So the labrum's here, the shoulder joint, and the labrum was just sitting like this. It was just sitting there like that. And when he went in, he was like, it was the weirdest thing because there was no signs of inflammation, there was no tears, there was nothing wrong in there, but it was completely detached. The labrum was completely detached from the shoulder joint. And so he said, I just stitched it all the way around. It's kind of like a hand, I guess. So the labrum's the ligament, and then this part he stitched all the way back up. I was like, wow. So is there any way that I can find out whether, I have more of these type of deformities? And if you'll recall from the first episode, I was born, flew, dropped, and died as an infant. So I think that something in there was probably one of those two, probably the dropping or the being dead for minutes, probably led to these deformities, or I was just from the womb that way. But regardless, this is just something that at any given time I could find another one. And I'm 30 years old now, and I've only had to deal with these two so far that are detrimental. The pinky is a nuisance, but not detrimental. Also, that I'm left-handed, so it is a little more of a nuisance. But so we fixed that shoulder. So now I've had 2 injuries from the job and 4 surgeries total. And it's supposed to be perfect, right? Good as new, healthy, strong. And I tear it again. I tear it again. And this time I just waited for years to get it fixed. But the longer I'm waiting, I'm compromising my body. I'm using my left side more. I'm starting to get back injuries because the muscles are like solidifying to help that joint. Your body will continue to live on. So because that compromised joint, all the muscles around it and all the other parts of my body were pulling it into structural integrity. And so then I was getting nerve compressions. I thought I had spinal problems. And I'd been in some car accidents. I've been in 3 car accidents and a motorcycle accident. Um, and so that happens. And so in 2023, 2 years ago to December, so in a few weeks, I had my 5th surgery on my shoulder. Second one on my shoulder, 5th in total. And now I've got arthritis. I had cartilage damage. I had labrum damage. And then my daughter, I go back home and my mom's supposed to help me with taking care of my daughter, and my wife is working and we're living on the ranch. We were in a fifth wheel at the time. And she was useless. She was no help. I'm taking care of my daughter by myself in a immobilizer, and she's starting to crawl. So I almost step on her, and instinctually I fall and put my arms out. And when I did that, I tore my rotator cuff. And so I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? And so come to find out there's a compound called BPC 157. So I rehabbed the shoulder for the labrum. I got good enough strength, but now that I'm back into my life, we moved to Tennessee and we'll get through. I know I'm going through a bunch of, decade of life and we'll get back to it, but we're just going to focus on the surgeries at this moment. Um, I get back, and that is something that, like, so now my shoulder's compromised and I can't work out. Like, I'm literally like, my arms, like when I do bench press or any type of chest press or shoulder, it's clicking, and it had been clicking and it never went away from the first surgery. And that was initially why I went in, but it was like strong enough. So I found this compound, and anybody that has an injury, please use it. It's almost a miracle. Like, it's a healing compound. It's not cheap, but it will work. And it's anti-inflammatory healing compound, and it's way cheaper than stem cells. I think it was like 2 grand for 4 months supply. And between that and working out, I was able to get enough strength in my body that it allowed it to heal. And it doesn't work right. It doesn't function to the same, like, I don't have the same range of motion as I did before I injured it, that rotator cuff, but I got my strength back. And now, thank God, he healed me enough to where I can work out. I'm stronger than I've ever been, and I feel great. And so that's the list of surgeries I've gone through. I've had other issues, but during each of these, after this first surgery, that was just kind of like, okay, surgery, no big deal, whatever. Second surgery was like a big life moment, right? Because I realized, like, I have to reevaluate everything. So after, in that, I'm still young. So in that moment, I'm not realizing this is a time of growth. I'm just like, oh, I'm reeling. I got depressed. I had grades start slipping. I'm getting depressed. I don't know what to do with myself. And then I kind of like figured it out. And the next year, I'm into my welding, and I've got this figured out. And I know I'm going to I start going to college, planning to do welding school in my senior year. And I've got things back on track. And so come third surgery, I realized all that I had learned in my second surgery, and that God placed me in these moments as a moment like, okay, kid, you're never going to slow down long enough to learn the lessons I have for you. So I'm going to allow you. God does not injure us. God does not harm us, but he will take his hand of protection off of us and allow Satan to do these things to strengthen our integrity, to strengthen our will, and to test our character. And so that's how I looked at it. And I was like, okay, he's taking his hand off of me. He's allowing these to happen to me to give me the opportunities, to force me into these opportunities of growth. And so I sat down and I looked at it like that. I was like, this is an opportunity of growth, and I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to read books. I'm going to get closer to God. I'm going to read my Bible more. I'm going to just slow down, evaluate where I was and how I got in this position. And because every time I had these injuries, I was not ready. I ended up broke, spending all my money, making more than I ever knew. So I didn't know how to handle it. I never learned financial guidance or how to take care of your finances. I was living a reckless, sin filled life after I graduated high school. And we'll get into that. But I used that moment of growth. Same goes for surgery. So that's surgery 3. I did the same thing for surgery 4. And my biggest exponential growth was surgery 5. 3 and 5 were key memories of growth for me. And surgery 5 was amazing because I found at this point I've been diagnosed bipolar. I've gotten a bunch of issues. I'm trying to live with a family. I don't know how to handle myself. And I find, I've been all over the country. I've lived all over the country. I've lived probably in a dozen states temporarily, and at least 6 or 7 states permanently for longer than 3 or 4 months. And so I think, let me list them off real quick: California, Oregon, Washington, Tennessee, Florida, Arizona. So 6 states permanently, and then more states temporarily for work. And Montana. So that's 7 states full time. And then, okay, so I could never find, in half of those states, I could never find the right mental health care. Everyone just wanted pills, take this, take that, try this. Oh, that's not working. Add more to the stack. Not take away, but add more or mix it up. Switch that out for a different one and then add more. And at one point, I ended up on over half a dozen drugs. And I find this program, I get to California and I kind of got forced to rehab there and because that's where my wife's job was. And I get there and I find a psychiatric care center and they're like, try this program called, because I really want to get the help. Try this program called it's an IOP program, Intensive Outpatient Program. I was like, okay, well, let's see if the insurance will cover it and let's do it. And it did. And they did. And then we did it. And it was 10 weeks, 3-hour sessions, 3 times a week. And they covered it. And I'm telling you, anybody that's dealing with mental health or they have drug rehab, it's essentially a rehab program, but they have drug versions and mental health versions. I think it was the best thing that I've ever done. And I really think that anybody, whether you have serious mental health issues or not, could really benefit from the tools that were learned in this program. And I believe to this day, God placed me in that location for that purpose so I could get these tools at that center. And once I left there, I was able to handle the traumas and emotions that I had from my childhood and to recognize them before they became problems. And I literally, at this point, I'm not bipolar anymore. I don't have And I never was bipolar to the point where I had the highs and the lows. I just was erratic in my behavior and I would get manic because I didn't understand how to handle my emotions. But I did have moments of depression, but I never got to where like it was bipolar depression, where it was a clear period. It was just lost. So, and I honestly, I believe I was oppressed by demons and that was why. And I learned how to end not knowing how to handle my physical emotions. And so after that, that was the best thing that ever happened to me is going through that program and having that last surgery. And it was a dark time and it was really trying for me and my wife financially, emotionally. We were under attack by the spiritual world, under by the kingdom of darkness. We were under extreme attack, but we managed and we came out stronger than ever. She accepted the Lord as the Jesus Christ as her Lord and Savior during this time and came out stronger and a better family unit. So that is the season of surgeries. And we were going to go back in time to senior year. This was probably the most traumatic period of my life that I could say, by definition, changed the entire trajectory of my life. There's a few key moments in everyone's life that are game changers. This was one of them. Try and keep it short. Senior year, I just turned 18 and my birthday's in February. I turned 18 and NASCAR in Vegas is like the first week of March. Literally, I think it might have been on my birthday or the first week, like March 3rd or something. Well, we used to go every year before my great aunt and uncle got divorced, and then my grandpa died, and my great grandpa. Once he died, then we didn't go anymore, but we went for over a decade. And I was like, I really want to go to Vegas and go to NASCAR. And I had no poor intent or anything. And before this, I'd had a moment right before I turned 18 where I sat down with my mother and I was like, okay, mom, like, had a revelation where I just need a real conviction. I'm going to come clean with everything I've ever done. I lost my virginity at 17. Maybe I slept with 1 or 2 girls at this point. I wasn't looking at pornography. I had drank a few times, handful of times, maybe once or twice a year since 16. And I was like, hey, I'm just going to lay it all out every time I've lied because I lied to my mom a lot growing up. We'd be getting in trouble a lot for stupid things, dumb things that you shouldn't have to get in trouble for and lie about. But it was always tell the truth, you won't get in trouble. And that was a lie in itself. So, of course, you're going to lie. So, and out of fear, a lot of fear. There was a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming, a lot of physical abuse by my stepdad. And so there was a lot of lying on. And so I came clean about all that. And I had been talking to a girl that at the time would have been considered statutory rape, but we never did anything. But she was convinced that we had slept together, kissed and fooled around, but we were just talking. And the girl was very respectful, was like, hey, you're young. But when I turned 18, I was like, she was like 19. And so, I wouldn't probably allow that for my daughter, but I had turned 18 and So anyways, we were really like, I mean, it was quite innocent. And so, but my mom hated that girl and she was really judging her family. And they rented from my grandpa and they were good people. She judged them so hard and did not like them at all. And they were nothing wrong. They did nothing wrong. They weren't into any type of criminal activity. They were just working class, blue collar people. And she just judged them. And so she was a real religious type, legalist Christian, and I don't know where she gets this high, mighty, judgmental attitude, but it's strong. So she judges them. And when I'm in Vegas, remember, bookmark that girl, put that away. I'm going to bring it back up. So when I'm in Vegas, the NASCAR race is on Sunday. And so Sunday night, we really, party's over, packing up the RVs because we'd stay on turn 4 in the end zone in the fifth wheels. And it's like, okay, so now all that's done. What do we do? Just hang around the campfire? So I said, great uncle. So his son, my uncle, was like, I'll take you out to the strip. Let's go downtown. Let's get drunk. Let's go to the strip clubs. Like, let's go. You're 18. Let's have a good time. It's all in the house. I'll cover everything. And he did. But my great uncle was like, you got to call your mom. And my mom left me there and had gone to Arizona a few hours away to visit different families. And so I call my mom, bad idea, because she was obviously going to say no. And so she says, no, I'm going to come pick you up right now. In the middle, it's like 9 at 10 o'clock already. I'm going to pick you up right now. No, 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 we're not going to do it. And we end up going. And so we go, and I didn't have to spend any of my own money. We go, and it was a great night. And a night terrible, very sinful night. But at the time, great experience. And fast forward a month or so, and I'm reading a book in my room for homework and have headphones in. And this is when they're corded headphones to my phone. She comes in, just barges in, rips that phone out of off my lap, pulls the headphones out. You can't listen to music and do your homework at the same time. And then takes my phone and goes through it. I remember I said that I have this clarity now of being honest. So she comes back in, and I don't know what kind of evidence she has, but she goes, did you go down to the strip in Vegas when I told you not to? And I just unapologetically go, yeah, I did. Just like that, straight face, no emotion. Yeah, I did. And then there was an unlisted number, that girl. Who's that? Who's this number? It's Sierra. And then she just lost it and starts screaming and yelling. And the more she's yelling, the more my dad's getting involved. And I'm still laying down. I don't care. I'm just like, yeah, I did that, whatever. And so she leaves all upset. He comes in the room and now he's mad because she's mad and he feeds off of her and he gets physical. And I'm same thing. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm not like, oh, I'm just like, yeah, I did that. And he's like, I had about $900,000 saved up we were working on a classic car, 69 Dodge Dart. He and his dad built it. And then him and I were restoring it because it had sat for 20 years. And it needed one of the last things it needed. I had already put a vinyl top, all new interior, reupholstered everything, found the seats that were missing, found a couple badges. It needed a paint job, and then it was good to go. And so I'd saved up. That was like my goal. So everyone helped me pitch in for my 18th birthday to get that. And then I was going to graduate and take both those monies, and then boom, I'd have a paint job. And takes that money. This is you paying me back for the trip to Vegas because you didn't do what we said. Which, first of all, you left an 18-year-old kid in Vegas with some degenerate family members. Not my fault. What'd you expect? And they didn't pay for the trip anyways. My grandma and grandpa paid for the fuel and everything, and I was with my uncle the whole time. So just stole my money. And then I was like, fine. Well, in the middle of all this, I'm still laying down, and he grabs me by the throat and chokes me. And that was it. I had it. I was like, I'm not putting up with this anymore. I'm an adult now. Like, I'm not going to be getting abused over telling the truth. Like, this is ridiculous. And so I packed up all my stuff. They're like, if you don't want to buy, like, if you don't like what we're doing, you can move. You can get out. So I was like, okay. I get out. So I spend the next couple hours like packing up all my stuff, put it in bags, put it by the door, and I just think, okay, I'll be back tomorrow. And my grandpa's within walking distance, a mile away. So I walked to his house and I was like, I'll be back tomorrow to get the rest, to come get my stuff. And they wouldn't let me take my truck or anything. And now thinking back on it, like that should have been a first sign, which I paid for. I had a job. I had a company. I was working side jobs doing welding, building trailers, building stuff, fixing gates, building fences. Like I did all this on my own. Yard work. I was working since I was 14. I've been working. And so bought most of the stuff that, except for clothes, stuff like that. But the next day I come back, and so remember, choked me. So my aunt comes in the house at my grandpa's and doesn't expect to see me, and I open the door. She's like, "What are you doing here?" And I explained the whole thing. She's like, "What's that mark on your neck?" And I was like, "Huh? Mark on my neck? What are you talking about?" And don't worry, this will make sense later. I go, "Well, my dad choked me. It's probably his thumb from where he grabbed my neck." She takes a picture to show me. I had her take a picture, not for any type of mischievous, nothing with any ill intent. I just took a picture of it to show me because I didn't know what she was talking about, and I was in the doorway still. And then I go over there the next day or that day to like go get my stuff, and they won't give me anything. Kept my dogs. I had 2 dogs. One I trained myself. They're my dogs. They're no one else's dogs. My dogs. Kept my horse I bought and trained and paid for. Tried to keep my truck. Kept all my tools. I got those back finally. Kept all my clothes. Kept everything. Everything. And became this huge family feud. And whoever believed me was disowned, and whoever believed her or would go along with her couldn't speak to us, or she would disown them as well, guilty by association. And so it literally became this divide. And at this time, remember I mentioned performing arts, audio engineering. I have my teacher who runs that class. There's 2 of us in the class, or at this time there's 3, but junior year there's 2, and that's where I gained the responsibility. But senior year there's another, and he's just kind of in there, but the 2 from the previous year are really running the show. Oscar was really good at lights. I was good at audio engineering, and we did all the performances, high school dances, football games, all this stuff. We're on the payroll of the high school, and I have a master key to the high school, to every building, every building on campus I can access with this key. My teacher's wife has had cancer like 3 or 4 times. She's now since passed away, and she's fighting it again, and they have to go to LA a lot. So when he's gone for a month or so at a time, I run all of his administrative roles, and most of my classes were elective at this point. I had 2, I had a history and English senior year, spring semester. That was it. Everything else was an elected class. And I was doing side projects in welding and then this audio engineering class, which was just helping the school. So they call me into the office, and I'm thinking, they have a task for me to do some sort of project, for that role. And my mom, this man that, come to find out, I actually bought my truck from, but at the moment I didn't really, it was a friend of my dad, some truck driver that my dad worked with. And then my mom's behind him. He hands me paperwork, and he served me a restraining order because I had been trying to get my stuff back. And I'm talking to my sister like, "Hey, what's going on? Why is mom doing all this? Like, what's the deal?" And they didn't want me to talk to her. They didn't want me talking to my sister. They tried to get me to where we go to school together, where I couldn't be within a certain amount of distance of her. I couldn't communicate with her. I couldn't call her or anything. And then they start slandering me, saying I'm doing drugs. I'm on, like, they should, telling the school they shouldn't trust me. I'm not acting right. And then no one believed that. And I've never done drugs at that point. I did do drugs later in life, but at this point, I've never seen weed. I've never done drugs, only the prescribed medications for my surgery, and I'd only take them for a week, and then I wouldn't deal with them anymore. I only had 2 surgeries at that point. And so I'm like, none of this is true. Like, this is crazy. But I had that photo. So I had actual proof of physical violence done to me and abuse. So I countersue, And I'm reeling through all this, and she's yelling at me in the courtyard in front of the main office, in front of and I'm reeling like, I can't believe this. In my whole life, my mom always said, like, if he ever does anything to you, you tell me and we will leave. He's gone. And they had gotten divorced because when I was young, he actually shook my sister so hard, like shaking baby syndrome, that she didn't wake up for like 14 hours. My mom thought she was dead. And so after that, she left him. And then he also had like gone through an anger management program before they had gotten married. And then the same day he graduates, he gets the cops called on him for wanting to beat up the neighbor. So he had real problems. And so that's the man I grew up with. And so she had said this. And right now we're in the courtyard in front of the office, and she's like, you're attacking my family. And I'd never done anything. I didn't file any paperwork or anything. And I was just telling the truth. And so she files that. So then I countersue, and I realized after reading paperwork, I could get my belongings through a restraining order. So I was like, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna try and do that because I can't get them still. And my grandma did get her to allow me to get my truck and tools so I can keep going to my welding college to not ruin my life because I bought all those and I bought the truck. And so we'll skip ahead till the summer. I go to court. They hire a lawyer. I got to fight the lawyer. They pay $5,000 to retain this lawyer. I had to fight him. They put my family on the witness stand, and they falsely testified against me. All lies. This just wrecked my entire everything I thought about in life. And my mom was the one cornerstone pillar of my life, which it should have been God. But I was still young, and you're really attached to your mother. And that was like my rock. And so once that rock was shattered and she had turned on me and totally became my enemy, it was trying to do everything in her will to destroy my life. And I went off the deep end. And then we go to litigation, and the judge, after 10 hours of litigation, my witnesses, her witnesses, character assassination, and she tried to say that Mark was a hickey from the woman. I hadn't seen her in months. And so that comes out, and he goes, this sounds like a family matter that needs to be taken care of behind closed doors. Dismissed. Dismisses the whole case. And he was right. And my mom's 20 years my elder. And so we'll skip ahead a little bit. And so that was really hard and led me down a dark, dark path. Started getting involved with my other aunt and uncle, and cousins were smoking weed. And at one of my step uncle, but at my actual, there at my cousin's dad's funeral, I didn't know him a lot. He was not there that much. Their stepdad was more involved in their life. But at his funeral, he was like a big time drug dealer, weed operator, owned the grow shop and stuff in Humboldt County or in Tama County, and like sold it to all these people in the Emerald Triangle. And so during that, they were smoking a blunt in the truck. And so I that's the first time I smoked weed. And then after that, I kind of like found my identity in that and and then I didn't have anywhere to live, right? So I started living with my cousin who's selling drugs, selling weed. And when his dad died, he like helped take over the business. And to this day is still a drug dealer. And I mean, that's all he's ever going to be. And I pray every day that he does something more with his life, but I don't see it. And he's like 35 now. He's not, you know, it's never too late. But so anyways, I fall into that hardcore, and I'm smoking, and that's really it. Smoking and drinking, and then in college, drinking a lot. I've woken up miles from my truck on some stranger's porch swing with no idea where I'm at the next day, the next morning. Like I start sleeping around. I get back into watching pornography again. And then those two demons had a hold of my soul for years, up until very recently, up until a few months ago when I got delivered from all that. And I mentioned how I got delivered from the pornography in my previous episode, if you go back and watch that. And so anyways, yeah, it was dark. And then my mom starts, that's when the whole opiates or the whole doing uppers and stuff, that didn't stick, right? So we keep good. I try and go back, I want to mend that bridge, but then I had to lie to my whole family. She's like, you're going to have to sit down with your grandma and grandpa and tell them to their face that you made it all up and that you made everything up and you did this to our whole family and apologize to them. And I love my mom so much, I did that. And I thought that was right. In the Bible, it says, love your mother, honor your mother and father. And I was like, okay. But I hadn't read enough to truly understand you got to guard your heart first. Sometimes your own family will be the biggest ones that are against you. So watch out and use the Holy Spirit's discernment to understand what's right and pray on it. And I wish I had done that and had more conviction. But I have at this point given her every opportunity for over 12 years now to make this right. And she still, to this day, has not. And it's caused me so much heartache and headache and tears. And so at this point, she starts. So I say that. So now I look crazy. Now I look like I'm a crazy person that just made this up and went to court and everything, all lies. But in my heart, I know the truth, but I really wanted to get my mom back and be back a part of my family. Cause every day I'd pass my grandpa's or my cousins, I'd pass their house. I could see it every day. And one day God just pulled me in the driveway and was like, you need to pull in. And I slam on the brakes and I pull in there, and that had its blessings, and he was right in these moments, but I lived that lie for a year or two, and I couldn't do it. And I told my grandma and grandpa, like, before that, like, hey, this is all, I did that because they made me. This is all a lie. Like, I lied about lying, and I'm telling you the truth and they understood because my mom's disowned my grandma, disowned my grandpa, and my other grandpa multiple times for years, and my aunt and uncles, and then would let them back when my grandpa would have a heart attack and almost die. Oh yeah, everything's fine, but we're not going to talk about it. If you don't talk about it, it's fine. If you want to talk about it, it's screw you. You're dead to tell. I'll see you at your funeral. But if you don't want to talk about it, we can act like it never happened. It's all good. And so finally I just tell my mom, like, hey, I don't believe that. And I still believe this, and it blows up, and we don't talk again, and it's on and off, on and off, on and off. And then I'm having my fourth surgery, the shoulder surgery. I need help, and I come back to them, hat in hand, and again we get back, and I'm smoking again. I'm smoking a lot at this point still, dabs, weed, edibles. My mom had given me some muscle relaxers. I'm drinking. I'm just off the deep end, and I'm living in a trailer, a fifth wheel, on their property. So I'm like, hey, I'm not in your house. Leave me alone. Let me do what I want to do. And they're like, you can't do that. So my dad, actually, I'm wrapped up in my arm sling, just had my surgery. He throws me into a truck he was working on, put a big, giant torso-sized dent in the bed of the guy's truck. I was like, all right, great job. Like, really good job. Like, look what you're doing. And so again, I just come to the realization, like I have to, once I healed up, I stepped away and I moved away. And for the first time, I actually moved out of the city, and I moved to Sacramento and got a real job that wasn't associated with any of my family or anything. And that's where we're going to end this podcast. In the next episode, I'll be talking about where my career in 2016 really started, of traveling, and how I started getting away from my mother and trying to become my own person, and to get away as far away as possible from my family for what was best for me, and then that's where my mental health struggles really, really take off. And we'll get into all that next time. But I just pray that everyone has a blessed Thanksgiving, and I can't wait to see you guys next week. God bless.